My next question I wanted to ask you was in relation to ARSET's training and resources, which you've definitely have gone into. Could you share some real world success stories where ARSET's training and resources have significantly improved decision making or outcomes in environmental monitoring and management?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I would have to rely more on our impact team. I do have some anecdotal examples, but I think we would need to bring them on to be able to have more examples. But yeah, because what we do is we do these trainings, we send out surveys afterward. We send them immediately after the training and then 1 year after the training. So there's actually two surveys to measure impact from each training. And not only do those surveys help us iterate in future trainings in terms of, how we can make them better, but we also decide what trainings we're going to do because we present the community with, hey, here are 8 options for a future training. What, as you as a community, would find of most value for a future RSET training? So I wanted to make sure that we did include that. But so in terms of examples, like real world examples, for example, I think I mentioned, actually, I was in Mexico last year, but 2 years ago, I was actually down in Argentina for an in-person training. And we had folks from all over the Rio Plata River Basin, but so it encompasses, it's the second largest watershed in South America after the Amazon. So it encompasses many, many countries, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, who am I forgetting? Bolivia. I mean, there's a lot of countries, right? It's a lot of area that this watershed encompasses. So I was down there helping with a workshop. ARSET was just one component of a larger workshop. And it was a international water focus. And in this case, it was the Rio de la Plata River Basin. So I was giving one day, or actually part of a day, and I was using different examples how you can use different data sets to monitor water resources. And I found out through one of the people that I was working with, and this was completely just conversation. I was just talking to him and he's like, "Oh, did you hear about Tiago?" Like, he was one of the guys that was at the training. I was like, "Oh no, like, can you tell me?" He's like, "Yeah, he went back there, and from the information you were able to give him and some of the demonstrations using Google Earth Engine and some of these data sets, he actually went and created an application." He works for the Ministry of Environment in Uruguay, and he created an application that's public facing using these data sets to show in terms of like how much surface water is in Uruguay at any given time based on precipitation levels, et cetera. And that was just through a conversation. That's the thing. Like, there's so many stories. I wish we could collect them all that we just don't know, because we do these trainings, they're online, we give them, and we're dependent on people, giving the, survey responses to, seeing how they're using the data sets. But that was probably a really good example of, he actually created a public facing website, web portal for the Ministry of Environment based on what he was able to receive from that ARSET training, which I never would have even known if I weren't talking to one of my colleagues who just happened to mention it to me. And I was like, man, that is awesome. Like, thank you for telling, like, I never would have known that. So it's just things like that. That's one anecdotal. We've had a lot of, so roughly half of the ARSET participants are academics, either undergrad, graduate, or professor. And we've had a lot of folks do publications using ARSET materials and ARSET methods that are shown in ARSET trainings. So there have been a lot of publications that have come out, not that we're co-authored on, but that were acknowledged from basically helping to share the methods to be able to do the level of analysis for urban heat islands, for example, or flooding, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of publications that have come out that, have cited ARSET as one of the resources. But yeah, thank you for the question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. Well, I appreciate one of the success stories that you shared, with going abroad as well. I want to ask you too, Sean, just as a side note, I know you've done like a lot of traveling. You mentioned that sometimes you've done like in-person meetings, other times they were like virtual. Do you know, and if you don't know this number, that's okay. I know it might be a little difficult to keep track. But how many times like have you traveled outside of the United States based on your amount of time with like the ARSET program to give like an in-person training?
Yeah, I would say, so it's a good question. The trip to Bhutan this year was kind of an exception. So it wasn't necessarily a typical trip for us, but we do international work. Yes, absolutely. We do international trips. I personally, like I said, they're not all international too, though. So for example, I said, I'm going to New York for the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs. That's going to be in person, but that's here in the United States. We've had a lot of meetings with, the World Bank, which is based in Washington, D.C., done trainings with them. We've done a lot of trainings with environmental protection agencies, or the environmental protection agency, but different offices will invite us to come. And I think most of those have been focused more on air quality, but so they're not, I wouldn't say that the emphasis is always international. They just happen to be, just as fortune would have it. Some of the trainings I've been very fortunate to be able to go on have been international, but they're not all that way. And I would say it's a pretty good half and half of, in terms of, where we're going to do the trainings in person versus, and online. I mean, obviously, as long as you have an internet, anybody can access the trainings. And I mean, we have numbers on this. I mean, from the United States, I think it's like roughly 16% of all the participants in any given training are from the United States. So the majority are actually international. The biggest being from India. That's our biggest country that takes our trainings. I think it's just sheer numbers. They have the largest population. So, but anyway, yeah. So it's a very international reach in that regard. So, but yeah, I have been very fortunate to be able. And I tell you, the majority of our trainings are online because we have the biggest presence there, right? We can reach more people globally, but these in-person trainings they're not to be understated. When ARSET started, all the trainings were in person. This is before Teams and Zoom and everything else. So back in 2009, 2010, they were all in person, and they were pretty much, I think 100%, local, training people here in the United States. But as the program has grown over the past, 12, 13 years, gosh, I think we might even be coming up on our 15th anniversary. Yeah, I've just been incredibly fortunate that some of the trainings I just happened to be, tasked to go on were these international trips. But I think they were kind of unique in that sense, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to do that.
That is fantastic, Sean. Thank you very much for that. Sean, my final question that I wanted to ask you was you mentioned about your recent trip to Bhutan, and I understand you and your team recently returned from the Kingdom of Bhutan, where you led a 4-day workshop. And I just wanted to ask, can you tell us some about that trip and, why ARSET is involved in the country there?
Yeah, it's such a good question. Yeah, you wouldn't really think that we would be targeting, especially a country like Kingdom of Bhutan, to go and do an in-person training. And yeah, it's a little bit of a backstory, which I think is worth explaining. So back in 2019, the King of Bhutan came to the United States, and there are no direct diplomatic relations between the United States and Bhutan. That's because by principle, Bhutan does not have direct diplomatic relations with any permanent member of the UN Security Council. So those are 5 countries, Russia, China, United States, England, and France. So they just don't have direct diplomatic relations. Fine. But the king did come to the United States, and he was able to travel around. He came to Washington, D.C., traveled from coast to coast. He went to different NASA centers. I mean, he met with different business leaders. So he was, he's very much exploring and seeing what the breadth and depth of opportunity economically and elsewhere, politically, diplomatically, et cetera. And so he was very impressed with a lot of the STEM initiatives, especially through NASA. And he wanted to inject more STEM activities in his kingdom and in the country of Bhutan. And so the State Department said, okay, well, this is a good opportunity. What if we funded NASA to do STEM activities with Bhutan? And so that was how ARSET was able to get involved. But it's not just ARSET. I mentioned Develop when we first started, about 30 minutes ago. And one of the other hats I wear is the Develop program. So Develop was involved. Servier, another of our sister programs, they've been heavily involved. Actually, one of the project managers from Servier, Tony Kim, amazing leader, amazing person. He's really the one leading this whole NASA Bhutan STEM effort. That's what we're calling the NASA Bhutan STEM engagement. And so Develop was involved. And so we were bringing scholars. These are Bhutanese scholars studying in the United States, and they were working on Develop projects with partners from Bhutan. So that was great because these students, studying it, they're all undergraduate students in the United States. They're learning about, earth science, they're learning about earth observations, and they're working on these great projects for, in this case, it was the Bhutan Ecological Society. It was the Ministry of Agriculture in Bhutan. So anyway, I think there's 6 or 7 different partners that they were working on these projects. ARSET, we were tasked to lead a training, and that training was going to be having something to do with, hopefully bettering life and improving environmental decision-making in Bhutan. So we had the opportunity specifically for ARSET to work with partners, Druck Holding Investment LLC. We worked with and we had trainers from the National Land Commission, from their Ministry of Energy, from their forestry sector. We had 46 different participants that we were able to go in the beginning of May, first couple weeks in May, and we went over and we led that. And that workshop was actually in partnership, not only with our partners in Bhutan and these participants, but also we were able to collaborate on the training with our sister program, Servir. And that is the program in which, Tony Kim was the project manager, but he's also leading the NASA Bhutan STEM engagement. So Tony was there. We had 2 people from Servir because they were actually there to deliver the service that they've been working on. They've been working closely for 3 years with the Ministry of Agriculture in Bhutan, and they've been developing a tool using both optical and radar data to monitor rice cultivation in Bhutan, to give not only the ministry but also their census bureaus a better count of not just having to send human resources into the field to be able to collect the data the best they can, but using it from a space-based observation to be able to quantify cultivated land for rice, which is super important for the kingdom. So they were going to Bhutan to deliver the service, and we thought, hey, why don't we build synergy? You're going there to deliver service. Why don't we do an ARSET workshop at the week before and just kind of build more momentum into all this different NASA Bhutan STEM engagement? So specifically with ARSET, we had 46 people, the best people you could possibly have: the National Land Commission, from the forestry sector, energy sector, folks from the DHI, Direct Holding Investment, and actually specifically the department was the Innovation and Technology Department. So we were training some people that were ideally going to be using this for all sorts of great applications. And so we led this 4-day workshop, and it was in partnership with the Servir, our sister program. And so there were myself from ARSET and my 2 colleagues, Dr. Amita Mekta and Dr. Erica Podest. They were also with me, accompanying me. So we had 3 members from ARSET, and then of course the ARSET team. Even though they were not there with us in person, we have this phenomenal team that was, helping to coordinate, helping to, translate, helping to do all behind the scenes work, promote it, etc. And so, so hats off. It was a team-wide effort, but it was so unique because not only were we going funded by the State Department, because they were the ones funding all of us, this NASA Bhutan STEM engagement, it was the State Department that was funding to send us over there, but then to be able to do this training, and then also to be able to build the synergy with Servir, who was already going to go over that to deliver this service, this rice monitoring service. So it was like all these different kind of roads kind of coming together in one, big synergistic way. It was awesome. And just the experience of being in Bhutan, it was just phenomenal. I'd never been there before. I'm assuming you have not. Most people have not. It is. I mean, there's only 700,000 people in the country. It's not a very populated country. But obviously it's a pretty sizable part of the Himalayan region. And it was just, they're the most gentle, wonderful people. I mean, it was so humble to be working and collaborating with them virtually for many years, but then also in person for this workshop. It was just such a unique experience in so many ways. And it was an amazing experience. And so thanks to State Department for having the leadership and the foresight to make this happen. Tony Kim from Servir to be able to kind of corral the State Department, get the funding in place and all the money where it needs to go, and then just the Servir team, the ARSET team, and then all the folks from Bhutan that collaborated to make this workshop. It really was very successful, and it was definitely a highlight of my time at ARSET for many different ways. So rewarding. These in-person trainings are so rewarding because that human connection that you make over the course of multiple days is very special. And the Bhutanese are just the most respectful, gentle, polite people. So it was very humbling. Yeah, it was incredibly enriching for my time there. And so, that was the experience. That's why we went there. It was because NASA and the State Department were trying to lead the STEM efforts, and ARSET was part of that STEM engagement. So that's why I was able to go over there.
Sean, this was absolutely incredible, our conversation today. And again, I just wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk with me today. The work that you and your team are doing with ARSET is incredible. And I just wanted to say that you are truly a rock star employee who is really making an impact and a difference globally. And everybody is going to be amazed at the continued great work that you and the ARSET team are doing. So please definitely, keep us posted in terms of the continued great initiatives that are going on there. And please let us know of any promotional activities that could be done. But I really appreciate your time that you gave today for this podcast.
Awesome. Jason, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you for taking time out of your day. I had a great time. So thank you so much.